Welcome to our video on trait leadership theory. Let's meet the team who made this movie, Tracey, Limpens and Shara, Speight.
The trait theory of leadership is an early assumption that leaders are born and they possess personality traits best suited to leadership. This theory often identifies behavioural characteristics that are common in leaders. In the early 20th century, it was thought that a leader possessed key inheritable attributes that differentiated from leaders from non-leaders. The great man theory is also raised in relation to the trait approach because it was felt that the great leaders of our time, mostly men, but some women, all displayed the same qualities in their leadership style, and that leaders were in leadership positions due to inheritance, most notably from royal or wealthy families of privilege. This idea that the leader is more powerful than the follower, who is less privileged, this is an idea which we can relate to today. Throughout the mid-20th century, the trait approach was the first systematic attempt to study leadership. Over time, there has been much debate about these qualities, and researchers such as Ralph Stockdill in 1948 and then again in 1974 and Richard Mann in 1959 struggled to identify a definitive list of traits. However, generally, the key traits displayed by leaders, if you are using the trait approach to identify a leader, are intelligence, confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability. What do these leaders have in common?
Let's recap these key traits: intelligence, confidence, determination, integrity, and sociability. Through the lens of Walt Disney, let's look at modern day leadership traits as they have developed over the decades.
This is Joy from Inside Out. She is one of the emotions in Riley's head as she grows up. Joy is always happy, but she is determined to keep all the emotions working together to keep Riley happy. This is Doc Hudson from Cars. He is the resident doctor and town judge and is well respected in the town for his experience, knowledge and wise counsel, which is a key trait for leadership. He teaches rookie race car Lightning McQueen a thing or two about maturity, respect and care for others. This is Rafiki from The Lion King. He is the ever-reliable baboon. He epitomizes the personality trait of integrity. He is a wise advisor to Simba and his father before him, Mufasa. He is always in the right place at the right time.
This is Merida, the lead character in Brave. Merida wants to break the social restrictions and expectations and control her own destiny. Her self-confidence is complemented through low fear and quick thinking. Merida in the movie says, "You can control your destiny. You don't need magic to do it, and there are no magical shortcuts to solving your problems." This demonstrates her own self-confidence in her own abilities. However, her shadow side is that she can also be compulsive. This is Woody. Through his sociability trait and genuine care for others, Woody won the respect, trust and loyalty of the other toys, so they were emotionally inclined to follow Woody. Woody's concern for the well-being of the toys was evident, and he was open-minded in receiving their thoughts and ideas, and he earned credibility by putting himself often on the line. Woody in the early stages overvalued the importance of his own leadership, being a figure of law and order as well as Andy's favourite toy. However, through the series, Woody's inherent trait, being a good, caring guy, allowed the other toys to support and accept Woody's leadership behaviours. We know that dispositional approaches to leadership assume that great leaders could be characterised by the possession of extraordinary traits and attributes, and that the trait approach emphasised personal and individual attributes of leaders. In the 1930s to 1940s, hundreds of studies sought to discover these elusive qualities, but research efforts failed to find a distinctive list of traits that guaranteed success. From a theoretical perspective, trait leadership assumed that stable, individual characteristics or traits produce leadership behaviour, and that this approach also assumed that the leader's style or behavioural tendency was stable across situations. So, is trait theory still relevant today? A major criticism in the literature is the number and subjectivity of traits thought to be associated with leadership personality. Stodgel in 1948 first argued that situational factors determined whether someone was seen as a leader. Even though the leader traits still carried some weight, this was the start of an understanding around the complexities of leadership and its relationships. By the end of the 1940s, research recognised that both leaders and followers were necessary for leadership. However, this important insight did not receive much further attention for another 3 decades. Organisational complexity and an ever-changing external environment requires leaders go beyond their extant knowledge and traits to achieve organisational goals and objectives. Today, leadership effectiveness is centred on being flexible and adaptive in new and emergent global structures to respond to the complexities created by this environment. In this regard, there are still some personality traits that are considered relevant to successful leadership: connection to vision, passion, stress tolerance, self-confidence, internal control orientation, emotional maturity or emotional intelligence, integrity, and importantly, the ability to influence is currently seen as the essence of leadership. All of these traits emphasise the importance of the follower role in relation to the leader. The trait viewpoint conceptualises leadership resides in select people. Shara and Tracey share their view on this theory.
So I undertook the leadership trait questionnaire to see if I had the traits to be a leader, according to this theory. Generally, I found that I rated myself very similarly to how others rated me. It gave me an insight into how people perceive me as a leader. For traits like self-confidence and self-assuredness, I rated myself lower than others because I know that it depends on the situation and it depends on how much knowledge I have, and that's something that the trait theory doesn't necessarily take into consideration. I think it's really important to identify emotional intelligence, and which isn't a trait, but with a high level of emotional intelligence, you can actually gain an awareness of how someone actually perceives you, which I think is a really important leadership trait.
I also took the leadership trait survey and, like Shara, generally rated myself consistently with my peers, co-workers and direct reports. One thing that surprised me was on sociability. That was one element that I scored myself lower. Goldberg found that there's a strong relationship between extroversion and leadership. As an ambivert, like Shara, I generally respond to the situations. I don't have a strong extrovert characteristic, and that is something that I continually work upon, knowing that relationships in my workplace are very important. I also looked further at the trait of integrity, and integrity scored very highly by myself and also within my workplace. And it's also aligned to the servant leadership in that there's a genuine shared interest to build community, and that there's a strong relationship between those two theories. There are several different theories that can be applied to leadership. Trait leadership focuses on the leader, where an effective leader exhibits a certain set of qualities and attributes. Trait leadership has its strengths. The leader is seen as a gifted person with innate natural qualities, and this can give us a benchmark on what to look for in a leader. The shortfalls of the theory are that there is not a definitive list of qualities, and defining these most important leadership traits can be very subjective. The theory does not focus on the followers nor take into account the situation. A person who is a leader in one situation may not necessarily be a good leader in another. Trait theory and application allows us a better understanding and perception of our leadership strengths. This allows us to maximise on those strengths and to improve on our weaknesses. Thank you.